Once upon a time, there was only the sun. There was no moon and no stars. The sky and the clouds hung so low that he could almost touch them. In this world was a woman who loved more than anything her shell comb and string of pearls. One day, she spent so much time admiring them that it got dark. Well, she still had to pound rice for dinner. So she sets this comb and necklace aside and put it on a small shelf, what she thought was the shelf. And so she pounds and pounds and pounds with the rice with this pestle. But she also didn't notice that this pestle was actually hitting the sky. And because of that, the sky slowly rose. And with the sky went the woman's comb and pearls. They became the moon and the stars and remain in the night sky to this day. Fellow Toastmasters, why am I telling you this story? It's just a story, quite typical of what are called origin stories. You probably heard different ones from your own childhood. This just happens to be from the Philippines, where I grew up. I got interested in these types of stories because I wanted to delve into many aspects of pre-colonial culture in the time before Magellan landed in the Philippines in the 1500s. So every culture has stories like this. The phenomenon is global. But interesting, the details in these stories are very local. So in this story, pearls and shells, lots of them in the Philippines. In another story that we have, the first man and woman came out of a log of bamboo. Of course, here in the Pacific Northwest, lots of ravens, and we have the myth of Raven who dreamed up the world. In the Zulu, with the Zulu in Africa, their creator god came out of reeds. Well, that seems simple, but there's more. So my research took me beyond simple stories, simple kind of origin stories, into discovering many really tropes of epics, legends, and a complex system of belief. Some of them are passed down orally, others are inscribed in a writing system, such as what you see here, carved in the bamboo. This map shows trade routes that were occurring, around that time. I mean, definitely before Magellan. You can see, so the Philippines is kind of above my head, above Molucca, over on the right side, and you can see that the routes extend through Asia, India, Africa, and the Middle East. What I find is that it was not only stories that were exchanged in these, in these routes. It was also stories, fantasies, beasts, characters, mythical beings. Here's one example. This is a Bakunawa, which is that kind of dragon snake-like being that you see here. A Bakunawa comes from the ocean and it goes up in the full moon and swallows it. So there are characters in Javanese and in Indian lore that are similar to a Bakunawa. It's a dragon that eats the moon. Here's another example, a mythical bird called Adarna, which is kind of similar to Garuda. It's a bird that can transform into a human being, and it often will have healing properties. So where does all of this leave me? Well, I started with a simple story that I already knew and that I could relate to, of this woman preparing food, losing her comb and necklace. There's something comforting and empowering about an action like that 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 an individual takes that somehow causes a cosmic event. In my small amount of research into stories that shed light on my culture, I was trying to see underneath colonial influences. So I took off layers that I already expected. There's American, Spanish, Chinese. But now I realize it gets much deeper, and that I was born into a culture that was already mixed with global influences from eons ago. To end the speech, I'll use the example of the turtle. It's an animal that is significant to the Philippines, but in the spirit of what I have discovered, I will borrow a metaphor from India. Kept finding turtle underneath another turtle, underneath another turtle in these stories. Will it ever end, or will there just be more turtles? It doesn't matter. Each layer, each turtle has been so different, they each have been worth their time. Here are some of the sources that I use in this research, and I am so very happy to have shared this knowledge with you. Thank you.